Well, we're back from the 2006 Nats, and as you can imagine, it's been raining while we're away. Our pond flooded out. There's about 16 days of yard work to do, and it looks like we're closing in on the sale of our rental property. The beautiful piece of property that where the sweeper was actually built, and many of the planes that I built over the years. But we're home, and it's time to see what's in today's mail. And while we're away, it just seems like, just because of all the rain, I guess too, we've had an incredible amount of rain this year. It just seems like the flowers are growing, everything's growing. Actually, the weeds at the flying field are growing. We're gonna have to weed whack tomorrow if we get to fly. But in the meantime, once the yard is cleaned up, we're looking forward to a day of flying tomorrow, assuming it doesn't rain. But again, it's a fun. The Testarossa year was the year of the rain. It's really unbelievable. And we have really enjoyed the little gift that Kent and Shelley gave us on Chicky's little memorial. It lights up at night. It lights up his little image here. We come home from dinner late at night, it's already dark, and it goes on automatically. It's really a nice thing. A really nice accessory for our backyard. But I see there's a pile of mail a foot high, and I really like to get right onto all the projects I'm going to need to deal with in the next couple of weeks, because we have some more testing to do and a couple new items we'd like to test on a Testarossa that we never got, and we're even anticipating possibly making another pair of wheel pants, this time a little more in keeping with something that'll be a little more able to take off and land the way we want. Those were just not, they were a little too stylish and a little not practical enough, but like everything we do, sooner or later, practical wins out. I don't know if you can see up in this tree, see him walking up there? Another little adventure that happened while we were away is we have a nesting pair of woodpeckers. They're up there somewhere. And we've been out here. We put up this special food that it's called woodpecker treat, because we know they have young every year. Now the other year, they had their young right behind the barbecue, and we watched them for a whole season. But this year they're up in that tree. I'm not sure where they are, but we call them Woody. He's up in that tree hiding right now. But if you've already seen the Nats videos, weren't those little fledgies great? That one little fledgie, I was touching his belly there right at the end. And Bruce Hunt had one sitting on his shoulder. Then we get back, and of course, we still have fledgies. I'm not sure that we've seen them all. And we had such really good memories at the Nats. This was possibly one of the best, maybe the best, in terms of having a lot of fun. I think it comes through on the videos. But one of the things we wanted to do is, I had taken a motor out of the Spitfire so I'd have a spare motor if anybody needed it. The spare prop and everything, the pipe. And since we're anticipating maybe taking this plane up to Midgley's where we fly off grass, what I had done is I had put on a set of 2 3/4 inch wheels. You can see they're way too big and sitting in those chocks that we made for the Testarossa. But I wanted to make sure I had plenty of ground clearance. I don't want to be chewing up any of these props that just seem to be harder and harder to find good props. And what we wound up on the Spitfire using at the end, the 14.5 rev up seemed to work well on the Spitfire. We were happy with that. We have a 15.4 that we got from Randy. We haven't even had it on a plane yet because we don't have enough ground clearance. And that maybe we will have some time later this week to test it, but first thing is the mail. What's in the mail? And of course the neat thing, while we're opening up the mail, we have the usual suspects here. We can watch the Nats videos over and over again. Get busy, we got another production run of pipes underway. And we got a 4-stroke from Ron Merrill that we're going to set up with a Venturi for him. He wants me to set this. We've set plenty of engines up for customers, but he wants me to dial this in for him. Set it up with the Venturi, get it running. It's a brand new Sato. he provided the engine, so all we're really going to do is get it broken in for him, get it ready. In fact, I can't even open the box with one hand. And we've done this so many times that it's kind of redundant, but we will get it set up. We'll get it run. But they are nicely made. And anybody has any real four-stroke questions, I think the real guru of the event is Bob Zambelli, who, well, the Moon Brothers seem to be running them very well, among other people. And there were, believe it or not, quite a few four-strokes. In fact, there were 27 of them, those P51s at the Nats. And almost all of them ran pretty well. There were a few clunkers, but most of them ran. Benny and the Jets seemed to have that pretty well figured out. Now, we've learned over the years quite a few things about the four-strokes. When you're trying to use them as control line engines, there's always some do's and don'ts. But the first, look at this, phone's already ringing off the hook. First thing, of course, is if you're new to this, read the directions. Now, it may be self-evident reading the directions, but there's only a couple of problems. In the very beginning, when we were running Satos and OS Maxes, we found out really wasn't such a great idea running four-stroke fuel because it didn't have enough oil. Well, a lot of the companies have changed that now, and some of the in the beginning, the four-stroke oil was only like 12% or 15%. Well, now it isn't. So this may all have changed, but there's a couple of things that really don't change. These motors are fit with extremely, I've found, and I think most people, even Bob Zambelli, agree, they're really well made and very tight. So if I turn this now, there's friction on all of the moving parts. I'm moving a cam, I'm moving the rocker arms and things. So what I always look for when I'm breaking the engine in, first I'm going to set this up with the Venturi, and I haven't done that yet, so I want to see how that's going to work. But there's a breather tube. Oil will come out, and this should be unimpeded. It should just go out onto the model somewhere or out the back, or in our case on a test bench. But that oil is going to come out black when we first run the engine, and we'll try to run it rich, a little below the power peak, the same way you'd break in a two-stroke. But the one thing we don't want to see is black oil still coming out. We're going to run the engine. Typically we put a gallon through it, or until it stops coming out black, either way. Now this one has a glow plug in it. I've always found that this may be an OS Max plug, I don't know, but I'll have to look at it. But the four-stroke plugs, the best of them is the OS Max, and Rojet makes a four-stroke plug that works real well. Two of the ones that we've had good luck with. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to I'll get my tool kit. These are all metric screws too. Take this whole carburetor assembly off, and I want to see how, I think this is a Moon Brothers thing that he sent up here. Again, it says Ron Merrill. And I thought this would be good information to put on a video. We still have quite a few people that really enjoy these in smaller planes, especially in like Brodak Cardinal type planes. These really work well. Now we've always found, and I guess Bob Zambelli to a certain degree has found too, these engines really run better, I think, with the carburetor than with a Venturi, but some people of course prefer a Venturi. The nice thing about having the carburetor is, of course, you can wire it for various power settings. It's got a nice seal up there. And this is of course where the carb mounts. I want to make sure that's perfectly clean before I go to the next step. Now as I'm putting this together, of course the directions are pretty clear. It's a little awkward getting a screwdriver in there, so I'm trying to be real careful not to strip it. These are little tiny metric screws. Everything's tight. Nice fit up here. You just use the gasket that comes with it. And of course the directions are just right on the money. I don't think that could be any easier to figure out. We need to hook up the muffler, and they give you a nice muffler with this. Now a lot of people in the very beginning were saying, oh, the first thing you do with a Sato is get rid of the muffler, and they were putting on elbows and straight things, but it really is a nice quiet muffler, there's no doubt about it. And since we're going to be breaking this in right in our neighborhood here, it looks like, and if it rains or whatever, we'll try doing it at the flying field. Now what this allows you to do, and I'm trying to do this carefully, look, I can't even get this, in fact, we'll make it hard. Make it easy on myself. Now, oh, you can do it this way too. You want to have a straight exhaust. Now what you do is you bring this down to where you think this is going to be. Let's pretend it's right here. We want to back it off just a little bit and then get this nut tight. And we'll tighten these up. Well, we don't want it that way, we want it out. I'm guessing that's the angle we're looking for, maybe up a little bit, because we're going to put it on a test bench anyway. Now I want this up out of the way while I'm adjusting the needle. Typically, if I remember right, we went out about 3 turns, but this is not the needle valve that comes with it, so we're going to have to experiment. We'll start out at 3. That's ready to mount up on the test bench. But unfortunately, that's not all the work we have today. This came in the mail today. It came from Sarah. I got to get the right. Sarah's Stitchery. We bought this out at Brodax. If you remember right, Phil Spillman had one of these shirts. And I just thought, gotta have, how can you not want one of these shirts? It's that all cool plain material. Sarah's Stitchery. Now look, some racing planes. Tuskegee Airman, this is what sold me, the Tuskegee P-51. Corsair. I think quite a few people had them out at Brodax. Anyway, a real nice shirt. I want to put the address up here for anybody that would like one. And I'm sure she puts a lot of love and care in. Here's her phone number if you'd like to call. You can tell her you saw it on Windy Videos. A great Christmas present. If you're looking for like an unusual Christmas present, that's great. Not much not to like. You even got a beach down here. GB. Nice material. That's really pretty nice. Sarah, I appreciate it a whole lot, and we're getting ready to go. Well, we got some more mail to go through, but trying to catch up here. But this shirt made my day. I may wear this up to Midgley's contest. Look at that. I think that's pretty cool. Very cool little addition to our accoutrements. Now, I used to laugh when Les Demet put this together, and he spent a lot of time and energy doing it, believe me. And I was thinking, we don't need all that. Just let's get my old trusty 2x4 mount that I had. But I have to tell you, every time I use this, and we use it on a regular basis, I keep thinking, how can you live without a really nice test stand? It really makes days like today when you have to break in a motor, it really makes it a very easy, practical thing. Something you don't have to deal with. In fact, we even have this. We gotta find a wrench. And you find out, I think the truth is, you find out when you have good equipment, the work you do just gets better and better. And this is infinitely adjustable. In fact, one of the next things we're going to do is run at 90 on a bench, because I want to get a feel for how it runs, how much fuel it uses. We're getting in, and this is the nice thing about being done with the Nats. Once the Nats is done, that's kind of the end of serious, you know, where you're trying to act like you're like you need to win a trophy. Well, as soon as we're done with that, it kind of lightens up around the shop. And at the fly-in field, most people are already done with their competition thing for the year. You know, we can usually get on with some fun. Now, among the things we're waiting for, of course, we're waiting for the Strega ARF. Really excited about having one of those in the Air Force. And it just seems like when we were in Texas, everybody that flew Richard's ARF just wanted to have one. And whether you're going to fly in a contest, and I was real happy to see Orestes in the top 5. with one of the pre-built Ukrainian planes that seems somehow to qualify for the builder to model rule. And I'm not sure how that happens, and I don't care, because all I want to do is, I really just want to see more people flying. That'd be enough for me. But either way, that's kind of a neat thing, and Midgley, of course, has 3 of them on order. But we're going to try to get outside. In fact, I'm going to try to do this today. I want to go through the rest of the mail. I'd like to get this broken in for Ron. I know he's anxiously awaiting it, but we're extremely busy. When we get back from the Nats, we just get, I don't know what you would even call them. Everybody seems to want to call, and what happened is we had a tree go down in the town of Bloomfield that knocked out some of the phone lines that they are still repairing, and we still don't have our shop line available. So that's kind of a pain. But anyway, that's real nice. We got to get our tank. Where's the tank? Huh. Need some new rubber bands on the tank. Now we also have some break-in fuel that has a little bit of extra caster. I always think, especially when you're breaking in any engine, a little extra caster is fine. A Rojet is the exception to that. And in the case of a Rojet, I do exactly what Richard wants, and it always seems to work out great. In the case of Satos, I have GMA fuel that has a little bit of extra caster in it. That seems to be the ticket to getting it. Until that vent is going to run nice and clean, even if we got to run it 2 hours, these engines have a really long life, so it's not like you're going to wear it out. But like to get this broken in real nice, get the needle valve set. When I ship it to Ron, he should be able to put it in a plane, flip the prop, and go. That's the motive. Now, before we get out to this, what I hope is going to be, none of my neighbors are going to moan and groan, because from time to time they don't even know. Like when we're doing a 4-stroke, they think it's a lawnmower. When I'm out there with a big 2-stroke, even a pipe motor, sometimes they get annoyed. But I just wanted to mention a couple of things. That when you have a Sato, a break-in prop, this surface here, the back of the prop washer, what I always like to do, there's my tool. Roughen it up as much as I possibly can. I also like to put a sunburst on the back of this. A very important thing, not to have the prop come loose, especially on a 4-stroke. They have double crankshaft nuts for a reason. And if they throw the prop, and ever since seeing Rich Oliver have his accident with the prop, I think an awful lot of us, especially me, we're getting very concerned about having their fingers near the prop. Anyway, that rough surface, definitely a good thing. Let me get the prop on good compression. And no matter what anybody says, it'll never ever change in the history of the world. The first guy to fly a 4-stroke in the top 5 is, take a wild guess. His name rhymes with Peter Pan. Anyway, oh, I love the way these feel when they're new. Anyway, we're gonna go outside. Ooh, that's nice. I love working with fresh new motors. that's come out of here is crystal clear. You haven't had any moving part oil yet. You can see there's plenty of oil in that fuel, that's for sure. That's going to come in nice. And once again, our break-in bench has really paid for itself big time. And as much as I've given over the years, I've given Les a hard time about spending all this time making this. Every time I use it, I know he was right. Hard for me to admit I was wrong. I haven't seen the light. But anyway, nice to have quality break-in things. Now, when I send this to Ron, the needle valve is already set. I'm not even going to take the muffler off because he might want to run it exactly as is. The needle valve is set right about where it should be, a little bit on the rich side for a first couple of runs in the air. Let it unload with a... Again, I would check with Bob Zambelli if I wanted to know what the hottest prop for these are. Bob Zambelli, Neil Beekman, they're all up on Bob's 4-stroke, his forum. And because we're a Sato dealer and we sell a lot of these, we actually were unable to get a 40. We wanted to get one for Ron, and they were out of stock. So I don't know what the issue is, if they just oversold them or what. But I'm always impressed with how nice those engines run. And boy, now I gave my 91 to Al Raby. I don't know what the result was, but he had purchased another one. I don't know if he had good luck with it or not, but it had a lot of run time on it, and you can imagine in practicing for the Nats and again using a Z-Tron. That engine, that was one of my favorites. Now, if you saw the carburetor icing on this, that's pretty cool, but all 4-strokes do that. You can actually see the ice forming right on the lowest part of the Venturi, where you have the Venturi effect. We'll wipe this down for Ron. There's probably a little extra oil in it. Anyway, Ron was a good friend. When Chicky was alive, his wife made that little thing that we have on our desk to remind us of Chicky and his little adventures that we all shared over the years. Anyway, Ron, good luck with this motor. Let me know how it works. That's the little thing that we used to have on Chicky's cage right up until the time he passed away. Now it's just crazy. Every night, every day, when I'm having my coffee or taking a break, I take out the Enzo model from John Cafaro and I start trying to figure how I can incorporate some of these scoops, some of the cool stuff. This is quite a model. And to be honest, I just love having it on my desk. Again, I got to think of somehow maybe to put that scoop up in the nose. The nose of these is just unbelievable. Anyway, again, we're thinking of scoops. And again, a day doesn't go by I don't dream about something that at one point, a year ago today, exactly a year ago, if you told me I was going to have a Testarossa, it was going to fly pretty good, and as unusual and off the chart different as a stunner with the big body. A lot of people poo-pooed me and said, it won't fly good. Well, flew good enough to win Brodex, and it flew good enough to get in the top 5 at the Nats. So, that old saying, ho, 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 who's got the last laugh now? But boy, we're still thinking about Enzos. Trophies will never be as important to me as Enzos. Gotta have Enzos. Now, tell you the truth, was there anything cuter than that little Fledgy on a Nats tape? My God, every morning I wake up and I think of this little guy. Now he was, as far as I can tell, this was his first maybe hour out of the nest. Oh my God, what a cutie. He really was fun. Anyway, he didn't seem too intimidated by my hand either. I was touching him and everything. Now look at this. This is right at the end of the gnat stapes. Look at this little guy. Fledgy, you're supposed to get on that hand. See, if that was Chicky, he would have jumped. Look, I'm touching him. He doesn't even move away. Fledgy, I'm not kidding. I'm touching you. And of course, here we are this morning. Haven't even had our breakfast yet, and we got Fledgies at the window. Just doesn't get any better than this. Oh, I love these little guys. Hey! Always great to start off the day by having breakfast with Wendy. Don't you agree? Sure he agrees. Look at this, I have nobody keeping me company here for the last 10 minutes. What's going on? This is ridiculous. I'm glad I got that motor broken in yesterday. Look at, we had overnight rain, rain everywhere, floods in my driveway. It's like it just picked up where we left off before the gnats. Rain, rain, go away. Oh, look who's down here, another Fledgy. Look at this, Bruce. Check these Fledgies out. Oh. Where did he go? Just can't take any more rain. Rain, rain, go away. Now, we got out here before the raindrops came, but they're predicting big rain later today and tomorrow. Just what we need. One of the objectives here was I had some props that I wanted to test, but the air is stone dead. I mean, you got to run back. You can't even walk back. Look at this. So I doubt we're going to get any real prop testing because I want to see how some of these props, you don't get valid readings in this kind of air. Just horrible. So I did have some props, but it does not look like it's going to be a great test day, and that's just a shame. Now, one of the things, this is my prop that's been on Rich's plane basically since he got the 77. And it's an ether prop, a 3-blade that I had done a lot of work on. I think Richard even worked on this one. This is one of the ones that went back and forth in the mail. Now, the only problem is that Rich flew to gnats with that prop, and he's real happy, he's thrilled to death with it, but he doesn't have a spare, and I don't either. That's the only one. So what's going to happen if he doesn't locate a spare? He's going to have to start working with something that he can buy 2 and 3 of, because inevitably, to pick up a stone or something happens, especially here, you can see how rough. Well, you won't, the next time you see this field, I'll have all this grass knocked down. I got the weed whacker with me. But this is one of the things I really try to never to have happen. Now, I have 3 of these, I'll call them the Rich Oliver props. So, what happened at the gnats, of course, one got chipped up, and then we played musical chairs trying to get it back. And we wasted about 20 practice flights just trying to get the prop dialed back into that setup. And I was really encouraging Rich to try to get another one of these 3-blades, since he wants the 3-blade because it's scale. So, and I understand that, but I just wish he had a spare, especially on days when the field, we take off right through grass that's always taking the tip of the prop and chewing it up. That's why when we go up to Midgley's, what we're going to do, I think we're going to bring the Spitfire, I'm thinking, because I got more ground clearance. I even have Randy's 15.4 here somewhere down the week, or the next week I'll try that. But without the right ground clearance, the props don't last real long here because the field is really rough. Now when we get back to the other field, that'll all change. The other field is smooth as a baby carriage. So in the meantime, we're just going to see if we can get some flights in before the rain comes. Hope that we don't get rained on, and we'll certainly hope we don't have lightning. Yesterday we had a lightning storm go through here. I never even got the video camera out of the car. It was serious.
And he's been,
So we weed whacked the whole field. The field is beautiful now. I'd say, you want to do some more?
yeah, you might as well.
Okay, I got more string. But look what showed up. Brian found it. Where'd you find him, Bri?
My wife found him in the backyard. He was running down the driveway. My wife can catch him. He's pretty calm and doesn't fly.
Well, look at him. Look at him.
He looks like a pheasant.
Yeah, some kind of
He looks like something.
grouse or...
Yeah.
He's not afraid at all.
Oh, no, he's cool. I thought my father was only going to take one. My mother's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you got to let him go in there.
Yeah, if you're going to let him go, take him. I would take him to Circle Burner Field.
Yeah, over here.
There's woods there. That's real woods.
You know how much woods you got
There's
in
plenty
there?
back here.
So what do you think? Take him out, Bri. Let's see him.
I haven't handled him since, but my wife got him here.
Well, if he gets away,
He don't fly, so.
And he doesn't look like he has a tail.
Yeah, he can fly. He's got wings and stuff. But
You're good with birds.
I just don't want him to go.
Bird man.
He's a fledgy. He hasn't really flown. I bet he's. I bet he's a week. I bet he's a week, a couple days before he really should have fledged. He got out of the nest.
That's what my wife was saying. I think he might even be a ground nest type thing. You know.
You know, it would be better if you keep him for a week and let him go. He'll be healthier and able to go and everything. I wouldn't let him go right now.
Yeah, he might be able to.
He's a little too much of a baby.
Oh, bugs buzzing around there.
Yeah, look at
Oh, that's mosquitoes. We had mosquitoes here. Hey, oh, he's a cutie. He's got a nice little face. Hey,
Take him for a week.
hey.
Take him home.
He'll dig some worms for a week. Huh? I think he'd eat seed if it was smaller. I just don't think he's breaking that stuff.
See if you can find a worm. I want to see him eat a worm.
Worm. I go in my backyard.
He's pecking at the seeds, but he's not eating them. Hey. Hey, young man, young lady,
Young man.
whatever the hell you are.
And young man. How's Les doing?
Well, little guy, I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know. You know, you look too young to release. We would love to release him, but I think the best place to release him would be up by the circle burner field, but he looks a little too young, so I'm trying to decide if we're going to keep him a week and release him or what. Yeah, and they got a nice face. They're very cute. What do you think? What kind of bird are you, though? We don't even know what you are. An eagle or something? Imagine if he's an eagle. But he doesn't seem to mind being held. He's very friendly. I'm very impressed. You're following the footsteps of a legend, Chickadooley. They're trying to find him a worm. My compadres here are trying to find him a worm. Now Brian had him in a little cage. Hey, sit still now. Sit still. Can I just relax here a little bit with you? You can go live with Bruce Hunt in Oregon. This is Brian's baby bird the day he was born. If you remember, we caught one of these. Take that picture off, the top one.
That's a bad picture.
How many eggs did she lay?
There was 6 in there, if I'm not mistaken. And this one hatched. The other one, it was, one that was developed but never lived.
Oh, yeah, there's the
And the
baby
rest
when
were
they're first
hollow.
born. That's what they look like.
The rest were hollow. And these are a little
So
bit.
one has lived out of that clutch,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, now
Oh my God! Look at this little guy.
Now he's about.
He's watching MTV already,
and
watching windy
now he
videos.
pretty much looks like the mother here in this picture.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's that big now. The other one's just a picture of the family.
Okay. And of course, what does he think about it? What does he think of it? Did he eat any worms yet?
I found him when those little things that roll up into a ball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was pecking at that. And
He eat it?
I found him a grub, one of those like.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he sucked that down. Now he was pecking at the other thing.
All right, so he's an insectivore.
Well, he'd eat anything. Yeah, I guess he just forages through the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
He is definitely cute. I wish I knew what kind of bird he was. And he doesn't seem to mind sitting in your hand at all. It's almost like he's a hand-tamed bird. But I think what's happened is he should still be in a nest for another week till he grows a tail.
I don't know if he's getting a tail, Windy. I think he's going to be that. I've seen them. They're bigger bodied, but they look just like that. I don't think he flies unless he.
Mikey and I saw some pheasants, wild pheasants, up at the field one day, and they had to run 100 feet before they could take off.
Yeah.
I mean, so maybe he's a baby pheasant. I don't know. You guys ready to fly?
Yeah, of course.
All right, let's get some flights. And look at that field. Brian, check the field out. All edged,
You
trimmed.
do good work.
Yeah, Rich enjoyed watching me edge the whole field.
Absolutely.
Good man.
Absolutely.
Actually, you got a little air right now, the
I
air.
I remember him watching us while we were digging a hole in the asphalt.
I love work. I could watch.
You know
it
what would be a
all
good thing to do today is get down some of the driveway sealer where we take off, so you don't get those stones. Those stones
day.
are killing the
Gotta get
props.
5-gallon pail.
But those stones, Rich, that's what's killing the props, is the stones. You look at your prop, it gets all chewed up in 5 flights. See, this is what we have on the field. It's all gritty. It's all this grit, and I've even blown it with the blower. The next day it's gritty
Well,
again.
it keeps breaking up. That's what
Yeah.
the problem is. Should go.
And so we knew the rain was coming, and that little bird is so cute. I hope Brian's going to have some good luck with him. We always love these little rescue birds. But it's pouring, and it was a good day. The field is pretty nice and clean now, and all we need tomorrow is to have no rain for a change. What a nice idea that would be. The whole idea of having no rain. What a concept. This is definitely going down in history as the year of the rain. Here it comes, baby. I love it. Stunt flying in northern New Jersey. Yeah, one thing, the fish don't care how much it rains. Anyway, we had a little bit of storm damage here, and I don't know what the day is going to be like today. They are predicting more thunder. In fact, they're already coming in here. More thunder showers. But I wanted to stop up at the field anyway and maybe do a little more work on cleaning it up, because we have another month up there. Maybe even a little more before we go back to the other field at the big parking lot. So just nice to have a nice field to work on. Or as the fish say, it's nice to have a nice pond to swim in. Another day that's a washout. There's static in the air. People were getting shocks in the lines, and I just read in today's paper this morning, 2 people were killed by electricity. Wow. So we all bailed out. We'll live to fight another day. And we even had a little storm damage in the last 2 days. This stormy weather coming. Well, one thing's for sure, you don't get to fly every day, but you do get to hang out with the birds. Because my fledgies are in the driveway already. Ha ha! I always say, we'll live to fight another day. We are really getting hammered by bad weather here. This is awful. This is our local paper, the Bergen Record. Boy, never underestimate, and today is one of the days. There's just been thunder and lightning and the sky getting cloudy. And we have had a lot of this lately, not to mention what happened in Texas, so we're not pushing it. It's a good day to stay home. Now as we pull in the park today, I see Rich Jacobone has beat me to the field, as he usually does. What a pleasant sight to see the Stuka flying. What a great way to start a day. Believe it or not, this is the first day we haven't had rain in so long. Look at this, people are walking, everything's nice, everything's dry, the field is mowed. It just couldn't be a better day. Look at the air. Whoa, I think we're gonna get some flights today. And we have some Testarossa work to do, we have some props to try. This ought to be a lot of fun. Looks like we're gonna get a good one in. Now, today turned out to be a beautiful day, got a lot of testing. And what I'm working on is a set of tuned pipes of various lengths, just so I can have some matching sets of props to pipes. And maybe I'll do a storyboard on that in the next day or so, once we finish up compiling the data. The other day with the big storm that went through here, and I mean it was a biggie, it washed away most of our driveway sealer for our takeoff pad. So rather than flying some more, because it's a blazing hot day, and get myself out of the sun a little bit, Rich is going to put up another, I guess, another 5-gallon bucket of this stuff, and we'll just have to see. Now, because of the heat, how hot it is today, I bet that stuff's going to dry in half an hour.
It should.
You know what? We go get a cup of coffee in Dunkin' Donuts and get back here, I bet it's going to be dry as a bone. And I may even be a nice enough guy to mention in Stunt News what a great Mexican you are. Former Mexican citizen.
That ought to go over well.
Jorge Jacobone and his driveway ceiling. Mike and I put 15 buckets of this stuff down one day. I was so tired. It was a flying day. I didn't even look at the car, let alone look at the plane. Yeah, it's going on nice.
The camera down and spreading some of this shit.
I like holding the camera. You're a shit spreader and I'm a camera boy. See, here's what it boils down to is Ferrari owners only work on things. If you had a Ferrari broom, paint that broom red and put a yellow decal. I'll work on it a while.
It started raining the other day. I thought about this one.
I know,
said,
I know.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? We got burned on that storm. You get any damage by your house?
No.
We had branches down all over the place by us. Now, we lost basically a half a flying day, but you can see it's already drying up. And this really makes a difference. Because what we've been doing is all the people with low ground clearance have been chewing up the props. This place has a lot of stones on it. So we've put 2 gallons down, one yesterday and 2 days ago and one today. And thanks to Richard's efforts, we have, well, tomorrow we'll start our testing. And we'll have, I hope, a real nice runway to run off. Now, because we've spent basically the time since we've gotten back from the Nats till now working with some exhaust tuning technology that we hadn't availed ourselves of in the past. Now, one of the things, almost everybody that wants to know more about this subject, the questions that they ask are usually the wrong questions. So what I'm going to try to do is lay out some of the information that I've learned over the years, certainly not all-inclusive, certainly not with a degree in fluid dynamics, but with a degree in the School of Hard Knocks, and with a degree of doing a lot of experimenting. Now, what I want to start with, and I want to start with actually before the time I actually got back into model aviation. I want to start with something that was very significant. Now, I might have mentioned this before, and I might not have. I had spent about 7 years racing motorcycles, virtually all 2-strokes. The 2-stroke exhaust motorcycles of that period, basically the late 70s, early 80s, those bikes constantly changed the exhaust system. And the exhaust system, and I want to oversimplify this, because I had a tenant in my 2-family house that worked for Honda, worked for Yamaha, and really we actually made some exhaust pipes, custom made pipes for dirt bikes and for road racers, but these were the pipes of the day. Now, they were usually made out of thin steel, brazed or welded together. If you look back at the magazines of that era, anywhere in the 70s, you'll notice, wow, those exhaust pipes were pretty small. Well, what happened is, as time evolved, and as the companies, Yamaha, Suzuki, the RD series of bikes, what had happened is, as time went by, and I'm oversimplifying this, what had happened, the pipes got bigger, they also got slightly longer, and they were required at that point in time to have silencers. So they would build the silencers out onto the end of the pipe, like a gun silencer. But the pipe never changed. The only thing happened was the size of the pipe, the internal volume, got bigger. So if you were to, and to make this really oversimplified, if you go look at a dirt bike is the easiest one to see because the pipe is right out in front of the bike. The road racers, the GP road racers, what's happened over the years, these pipes have gotten considerably bigger than the pipes of years gone by. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but what's happened is the volume, the internal volume has gotten bigger. The reason is, one of the reasons, and again, please keep in mind, this is oversimplification. I don't claim to be a rocket scientist here, or I don't claim to be like a Frank Williams guy that knows this stuff. I only know it from having ridden the motorcycles. Now, what would happen is you would take this motorcycle, and it would typically be an RD, a 350, put on the later model pipes, and you'd gain some speed. Now from here to here, there was quite a considerable gain in speed. But as the pipes got even bigger, here's what happened. The speed stayed the same, but the bike got easier to ride. Didn't wheelie coming out of corners. And what they called that, in the time that this happened, what Yamaha and Suzuki called it, what in the very beginning, they wanted more power. Their only quest for tuning the exhaust was to find a power spike somewhere in the power band, typically at 10 to 11,000 RPM, or on the factory bikes even higher. And all they were looking for was within that range, maximum power. And they got it. They had a power band on those old Yamahas that was just like that. Well, what happened is, as they increased the power, and this is anybody that's really into two-stroke tuning, people that really do this for a living, know that this is kind of useless. In the world of motorcycling, in the world of motocross bikes, dirt bikes, well, what's happened now is they've even gone to 4-strokes because they realize it isn't about the power. It isn't about making more power. It's managing the power. Now, when we make a tuned pipe, we're not really looking for a big power spike. We have a power curve with a road jet, any of the road jets, that's pretty flat. I'm not looking to do this. I'm not looking to put a spike in it somewhere, although other people that have scientific backgrounds, and I use Frank Williams as an example, they managed to figure out how to use this with very low pitch props. But again, those are the rocket scientists among us. The average person, the person that's busy trying to figure out where the wing over pullout is, benefits from having a flat power. And to oversimplify it, it's power management. When we design an exhaust system, it's made for power management, not a power spike. Now, to go back, and I want to go back because this, if you realize how this happened, you'll have a real good understanding of the world of stunt runs very parallel to this in a lot of ways. So if this seems overcomplicated, I'm trying to simplify something that is extremely complicated in the terms that everybody would understand conveniently. The exhaust systems got bigger, the tuning went from, as the motors got more and more powerful, it just gets almost impossible to ride the bike. What happens now is you're not looking for more power. You're looking for power management. Smoother power on, power off characteristics, more like what we're looking for in stunt. So the world of motorcycles in the 70s and early 80s ran an exact parallel thing to what had happened in model aviation in the 90s and now in the 21st century. So here you are, and what has happened is, and if you follow through with this, you can follow through, you can argue with it, you can basically disagree with it, but you can come up with your own solutions. But this is what I believe truly happened, starting about, and I'm going to make a guess that we started about 1987. The phenomenon of people wrote about tuned pipes. People wrote in magazines about these power spikes and running on the lean end of the power curve and running this and running that. And a lot of people, including myself, would rather have what amounts to be our traditional two-stroke 2.4 run, but with more power. So what we've tried to do is combine what started out in the early 80s, in the mid 80s, into something modern, because the motors of today are probably twice as powerful as what we had going back to 87. So look at this and just try to envision where this is going. You had all of the planes basically in the 700 to 750 inch range. A typical Impact, a typical Cardinal, a Trivial Pursuit, an SV11. These planes are pretty generic. The planes never really changed at all. But what happened was, Paul Walker, Billy Werwich, several of the really good flyers, maybe Ted, I don't even know if Ted falls into this category, but some of the good flyers of the day wound up wanting to use 40 motors. because you could run, there was a quirk in the rules that allowed you to run 015 lines. And it's a tremendous, tremendous advantage to be able to use 015 lines. So they used this, and legally, and with excellent results, to power what should have been 60 size planes with 40 size motors. And I guess that evolved over the years, but what the problem was, these motors were really too small for full-size planes in terms of displacement. So what had happened is, they had to run these motors, the pipe was used to make more power. More power was what early pipes were after. Now, the early pipes of that time tended to be that they made power, but the problem was it was basically an uncontrolled power. It was a power that an awful lot of people couldn't manage properly. Lean runs were very common. I remember watching guys go 20 minutes on a lean run, and they were very, very difficult, unless, of course, you happen to be one of the world's big experts. But average people had a lot of problems, spent a lot of money, had a lot of problems. Now, what had happened, though, and thankfully, and I give Randy Smith a lot of credit right away for doing this, Randy took the 40 size motor, realized more displacement was going to be your friend, only now you couldn't run the 015s. But bigger displacement was friendlier. Now, I may be wrong, and I haven't checked with Randy to confirm this, but I think years later, even when people were running 60s and 70s, he preferred the 51. Well, the 51 is going to be better than a 40 in terms of being the power band of the 40 when it's piped for maximum power. Remember, a pipe can only make more power over about 1,000 RPM range. So if a stunt run needs to be about 2,000. So you really, this is always better, in my estimation, and the best of all is a John Deere tractor, where you still have a 2.4 run, or as George would say, a 4.24 run, but you don't have this really harsh power spike that can vary the mileage. It can make the engine not last anywhere near the time it should. Now, if you go back to around 1991, this is evolving, and I took it to the next level. I said, well, gee whiz, there was no 60 rear exhaust of the day, and I used an ST60, a Big Jim ST60, piped it for more power. That pipe is still being used by a side exhaust that went under the fuselage, and not to make cute artwork here, but that pipe and that engine are still in Mike Kajeski's plane. But what I realized right away, I stumbled upon something that to me was very significant, was because the ST60 had a different timing than the more powerful engines. It was a smoother, friendlier engine in a lot of ways. It was even friendlier than the 51s at the time. So, and of course, that's all in the eye of the beholder, but what I wanted to do is go to the next level. I'm always looking, as soon as you get up one level, you want to go to the other level. Now, I've seen in the past many people go to bigger displacement engines, and you can't say, the thing that's wrong is you can't say, well, Billy Werwich didn't do that. Well, yes, he did. Billy Werwich is not flying 40s anymore. Paul is very successful with 40s, but Paul is a much more accomplished modeler than the average person. Paul lives and breathes this stuff. He's been doing it for a lot of years. So you can't use the same rules that apply. When you go to learn golf, you can't learn from Tiger Woods as well as from a guy who's having the same problems you're having. And the problem with all motors is people want them to be needle-friendly, user-friendly. So now you come into the modern era, where you basically had PA61s dominate the event for many years, and their pipes, if you go and look at the design, their pipes are made to make a very soft power increase. They're not designed as a speed pipe would be. See, a speed pipe would look like this. This is, if you wanted to make maximum power, speed pipe would not have this flat section in the middle. That flat section in the middle smooths out the power, but at the cost of peak power. This is what a peak power, go look at any speed pipe. So Randy, I think for many years, and Billy Werwidge and various other people that were making pipes, Brian Ether, I don't want to leave anybody out, George Aldrich, they realized right away, hey, these planes are now, of course we're flying the same plane, these planes now, instead of having the proper power, are way overpowered. And all you need to do is wait to the end where any of these motors go lean for the last 2 or 3 laps, and you can see what kind of power is on tap. So again, we get back to where we don't need more power. We sure don't need this. We don't need more of a power spike. What we need is to soften it even more. So what I did, and when I went back, and I had all these mandrels made years ago, I went back and I just said, let's relive the time that I knew about the motorcycles. And I want to draw this out because my original pipes had this big fat section and the power was very soft. This determines how soft the power is. It spreads the wave out. So what has happened is, over the years now, well, Richard comes out with a PA65 even more powerful and a 76 which is even more powerful. Now these planes are really overpowered and we're really concerned with power management. So now that power management comes into it, what would be the logical thing is to get some mandrels made up that are just a little bit bigger, have a bigger and fatter soft section, and now we don't even need this because the way the baffling system in a Rojet pipe works, we can make the pipe even shorter, still keep the baffle at the same spot, and use this end for all our sound deadening. And right here we've gained a lot of volume without making the pipe a whole lot bigger. And also by making the neck of the pipe a little bit bigger, I have the option of making this a trombone pipe. Trombone pipe would be, here's your header, pipe is slightly oversized, so when you want to change 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, you can do that with the pipe without having to cut the header, without having to cut the pipe. So that was an upgrade. So now we've gotten these pipes in stock. We used them at the Nats. In fact, the Testarossa pipe, and I'm just going to put this information on, was basically like this. It had the stingers coming out the back, and it was extremely long. Now most people run a pipe 18 inches. If you go down 1,000 RPM, 19 inches. But Rich Oliver had found that 20, 21 was working real well, and he found out very conveniently that the longer he made the pipe, what happened, he could move the pipe back, and I want to detail this out. This is a significant thing, that the power delivery got better. It was the delivery. It softened and smoothed the motor brake out, made it more manageable, made it that it would turn a bigger diameter prop. But now there's a constant problem. You run into there's always, when you get to one mountaintop, there's another mountaintop somewhere here. And this was a significant problem, is most of the stunt ships of today have very similar dimensions. They have relatively thick wings that are almost everyone is very similar. The motors are usually 10 inches in front of the spinner ring to the leading edge is usually about 10 inches. That's the most common number. Virtually everybody's using either a low-rise or a high-rise header, and I want to just show how this worked out. Now, what's happened with the Testarossa is I needed to just get the slightest bend in the pipe because I wanted the pipe to go back up into the fuselage. So I made a mandrel with a very slight bend in it, that now that pipe could be longer and still be contained inside the fuselage. And I stumbled upon something, again, that I thought was significant. Because here's what happened, and here's what most people of the 80s and 90s did and never realized they were kind of cheating the system. What they would do is leave the pipes hanging out the bottom of the plane, and that, whether you like that or not, I don't think, that's not for me anyway. But here's what happened. The pipe has to clear the wing. So what they would do is, well, I'm going to try to make a drawing of this and get my point across, because this is really something that slips right by a lot of people. It just slips by and they never realize it. Well, where the motor is here and the header ends here, typically at a very similar spot. what happens, they have an 18-inch pipe, 17 3/4. That's where people run usually in the 10,000 RPM range. They run typically 17 and a half. You can pick your, and it would depend on the weather, air density, and a million other things, the prop you're using. But that's a good place to start. Between 17 and a half and 18, I think almost everybody fits into there. But what happens now is as you'd make the pipe shorter, you'd get to a point where the pipe had hit the wing. And so you'd wind up with this pipe just dangling out the bottom like a cigar or something. Well, here's one thing I found out is I made the pipe for the Testarossa, and I made this section longer. Now I have the ability with these mandrels to custom make these any shape, but I had this long straight section, and then I had the normal guts of the pipe that exited with dual exhausts. So what I realized is, I've kind of cheated myself here, because this section here, this constant section, is not giving me the tuning that I really want. I don't really want to know, here's the baffle, here's the glow plug, here's the two things you're measuring, but I was getting this long straight section in here, and when I'd move the pipe up further, it'd kind of skew in the body. So what I found out was, and let me make a separate chart on this, is if I shortened this, if I made it longer, I put a 1-inch piece in here, that the 19-inch pipe ran good around 9,000. Maybe we could give or take an eighth or a quarter of an inch. But then when I'd run around 8,000, and I have some props, the big rev ups, what I was experiencing, I was using the same pipe and just moving it in and out. And what changes is the volume of the pipe. Now let me just elaborate on that just a little bit. Now when we make a pipe, the mandrel is longer than it has to be on both ends. You have your cone, the relatively constant section. Now it's usually an inch or two longer because of the wrap. So you need to, let me just show this up close. When you have a pipe on a mandrel, you've got to hold that down while it's in the oven. You can't just leave it sitting there. And so what would happen is, now if I want to make the pipe 18 inches, I just cut the first inch off. If I want to make it 19, I leave that on. Well, I have some variation here because this is almost except for a draft angle, a constant section. It's the same thing in the back. We have exactly the same thing happen in the back. So we have a variation of an inch or two. We could actually do 2 or 3 inches. So here's what that allows us to do now. If you look at the way this pipe is made after it's trimmed out, and boy did this work great for me, because I have all this room in the Testarossa. The Testarossa is unique in terms of having a lot of room. What I did is I wanted to make the baffle part of the pipe up closer to the front, so I didn't trim the front. I left the front as long as possible, and I trimmed what amounted to be all of the amount off of the back, getting the baffle back up in the position I wanted to. Now what this does, if you look at it, it's an increase in volume, because as you make more and more of the pipe, the big section, if I had a clear plastic pipe, as I cut this section off, every quarter of an inch I'm losing this much volume, and I'm gaining it back here. So to gain, as I lose at one end and gain at the other end, I'm probably gaining 4 times the volume. Now, a lot of people don't really understand, why is volume your friend? Volume helps scavenging. If you understand how this works, it's a real easy test you can do yourself on a Fox 35 to understand scavenging. But big volume with the proper length, the length has to match the prop that you're using. Big volume is your best friend. Even if you have a Tiger 60 without a pipe, let me show you something that, and this is, again, old technology, but a lot of people don't know it. I have to go back to the 88 Nats. Now, if I go back to that Nats, I came away from that Nats just loving Brian Ether's plane. Brian Ether had this beautiful plane. He had a Tiger 60 in it. And he had the smallest little tongue muffler I have ever seen on that plane that had 4 1/8 holes. Notice how I remember that. I can't remember where I put my keys. He had 4 1/8 inch holes. Now, what had happened is he had a tremendously powerful motor, a motor that was set up to make maximum power. And then what he did is he choked it down with the exhaust. And I remember it was nice and quiet. I thought it was pretty cool that it was that quiet, but I remember thinking, I wonder how small you can make the muffler. So I had asked Billy Werwidge at the time, and Billy said he had one of his Tiger 46s, and here's the exhaust. And he just made a plate. It was a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum, and drilled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes, and then you could put Allen screws in the holes and choke it down, keep it varying. But again, the problem with all of these systems, they were nice, they were tunable, they were light, but they had their downside. And it's a very obvious downside. The motors ran red hot because a lot of that exhaust gas that had already burned was going back up into the engine. Now, I did my little test with my, and I've shown 100 times on this, I have this drawer with all my experimental mufflers on it. I was in a learning curve where I wanted to know how this worked. So I took an engine in a plane, one of the Tiger 60 planes of the day, made up, this is right when we were in the peak of working at the machine shop, had an exhaust stack made that was, well, I'm going to guess 6 inches long. And I bolted this plate to this end. The first thing I did, I bolted this plate here, I bolted right up against the engine stack, took a couple of flights, and that motor, when it landed, you couldn't even touch the spinner. It was choking itself to death. You could look in and see the face of the piston was just like a barbecue. Well, then I had at the time, the tongue mufflers of the day were 1.5 inches. I put 1.5 inches long. What that did is add some volume. And I noticed, wow, you could touch the spinner at the end of the flight. The motor run got much friendlier. Needle range got much friendlier. And the way you know if you're in a friendly needle range, when you have to open the needle, you know it's flowing more gas. So what I did, I put 2 of these mufflers back to back. And we had this stock, I think it was 6 inches long, that we just used to cut pieces off when we made those early mufflers. Well, this got better. Now, at some point in time, you see where this is going. If you added 3 and a piece of threaded rod, there was a time when I had a piece sticking out plain. It was 8 inches long with 2 440 nuts on it, and this plate on the end. But every time I increased the volume that the exhaust was going into, it got better. Now, of course, the best of those days, the best mufflers that I remember were the tube mufflers. If you remember, the tube muffler had a lot of volume. And it's the volume that allowed it to be quiet, allowed the motor to run cool, and allowed everything to be friendly. Now here we are at the 88 Nats, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a tiny little tongue muffler on there, not a real big muffler. Didn't really work the way it should have. Jimmy Casale had a tongue muffler on his plane, and the only difference with the tongue muffler he had, the holes were gigantic. He had figured out in a different way that I had that just getting rid of that exhaust, not keeping it in, was the answer. And pretty much everybody in that time window, I mean, when everybody was using a Tiger 60, this was a different event because there wasn't any tricky stuff going on. Either had a tongue muffler, a barrel muffler, a rev-up prop, or a zinger, and it was pretty cut and dry where the gains were coming from. But it didn't take long, and we figured out the gains were coming from more muffler volume. Now here's the planes from a year later. Look at the muffler volume. Look how big that. These were tube mufflers. Craig Gunder welded them, but boy did they run nice. And that Gifford eventually got one of my tube mufflers to run real well on his Tiger 60. But a lot of people had already figured out volume is going to be your friend. And this is going back, this is in Pasco. So here we're back, we've come full circle. Now we're dealing with pipes. And to emphasize again that more volume is always better, up to a point. The point is when it doesn't fit in a plane. A lot of times you can just bend this neck to get it around the wing, make it a lot more attractive. Now one of the things I've done, and several times I've done this, is just take and remove the front part of the pipe, leave the back piece on as a volume gain. I've also had the chance to make custom one-of-a-kind things where the mandrel, if you follow what has to happen, if you follow where this mandrel has to go, here's what really has to happen, is the motor is exhausting. Let's pretend this is the exhaust port of the motor. And inside here, it's really hot. It's probably 15, I've heard 1200, I've heard 1500, but don't put your finger there. This is tremendous, tremendous heat. It's a hell on earth going on right at the exhaust lip. If you ever notice, as this track goes further down from the header, this is getting cooler, cooler by a significant amount. If you have a thermometer and you can measure it, one of those laser thermometers, you can usually measure a significant drop, even a couple inches right off the lip. But right at the exhaust lip, that's where that's the hottest. Temperature is dropping. If you make a tuned pipe and you run it on a header an inch long, you'll melt the carbon because the carbon's only good to 600. Some of the pipes only go to 450, so you can melt them. Ours is supposed to go to 600, but again, it remains to be seen whether you're really getting 600 or 700 there. I don't know. But anyway, the whole point is, the more you restrict this, if you put a potato in here, and that heat then goes right back up into the engine. You can feel at the end of a flight, if you feel a spinner's red hot, you know something's not exactly the way it should be there. You know that can be a problem. Now, if we were making an exhaust pipe, and we wanted to have the biggest power spike possible, which obviously we don't, but this is how you would do it. The header would come out, and as short as it would be, first of all, it would be a metal pipe. It would not be a carbon pipe, because it would melt if it was carbon. But starting right at the exhaust lip, you would want this to get just a little bigger, just a little bigger, just a little bigger. Constantly getting bigger up to the flat section, and then you'd want it to kind of stay the same for some tunable amount. And then in a speed pipe, you'd want a cone baffle. And on our pipes, it doesn't really matter. A flat baffle is still, because we're not looking for that maximum power. So here's what happens and it's called scavenging. When a two-stroke engine fires, this is under tremendous heat, tremendous pressure. It wants to get out. It's like it's been in prison and it wants to get out. This is an extreme hell on earth going on inside that engine. It wants to scavenge. That means it wants to take all of this burned gas, that's probably 1,500 degrees, some amount depending on a lot of factors, how much nitro you have. It wants to go out. Now what it wants to see is when it goes out, every millionth of an inch. Now Kenny Augustine, somebody who does this for a living and runs dynos and runs flow benches, explained this to me in a very simple way. He said it's not exactly this simple, but it's close to being this simple. It wants to scavenge. It wants to go out. It's being pushed out by the pressure, the compression, gas has expanded. And what it wants to see, every millionth of an inch, is less resistance than the millionth of an inch before it. It's a decision that gas makes 1,000,000 times an inch. It comes out and it says, which way is easier? Less pressure here, more pressure here. Whoops, I'll go here. Now where? More pressure, less pressure. More pressure, less pressure. As this is opening up, the pressure is reducing. So it wants to scavenge. It wants to supercharge. The scavenging comes from this cone getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now this is really, really a plus thing, except for one problem. The headers that we use are constant section. So what I try to do is I try to incorporate into the pipe that first part of the section having an exaggerated scavenging effect. And it's exaggerated from what a maximum power pipe would be. But it seems to spread the power out the way I would like it to be. And so this doesn't get too involved or too complicated, I wanted to explain. This is my next project I'm making for the Testarossa. We have the original pipe that we used. It was 26 inches long to the baffle. Had double stingers. Ran at anywhere from 8,400 to 9,400. About 1,000 RPM range that was happy in. But again, we were not using the baffle for tuning purposes. We were just using it as a muffler would be. We were using it to smooth the power, to limit the power, and go back and look at some of the flights from the nets. That power was very well. I think it was the best controlled of all of the people there. Maybe with that exception of Richard Oliver, I don't know. And maybe mine is better, maybe his is, maybe Frank McMillan's is, I don't know. But it's controlled power. Now what I wanted to do now is, I wanted to try, and this is going to be the next part of this experiment. This, by the way, was with Rich Oliver's Ether prop, the 14-inch props. Now the next part is, I want to make a pipe that's an inch shorter. And I'm going to go in 1-inch increments, and because I don't have, at that point I can't run the stingers out the back, I have to run the stinger out here. It's a 410 stinger. But what I wanted to do originally, and this was the original thing, was I was just going to make up a big pipe and then start lopping off the front. And I said, I don't know, that's not the right way to do it. But I came up with a better idea, a little labor intensive, but then I'm not doing this to save labor. If I want to save labor, I can go watch Oprah. What I decided to do was make a set of pipes that the pipe was as far forward as it could go, so I have the most volume. I haven't lost volume. And I wanted to make a tunable set. And I'm not getting the artwork down the way it should. But each one roughly an inch shorter than the next. And I wanted to have a pipe that would tune at 18 inches, one at 19, one at 20, one at 21. Now in those four ranges, because this would be the 10,000 RPM range, 9 to 10, this would maximize the use of Doran's 3-blade props, which are still one of my favorite props, and one of the ones I like, except for the fact with the long pipe, I'm out of their tuning range. These props have to run a lot faster. I also wanted to know, well, is there going to be a gain or a loss somewhere in here? So if I made, and I think I'm going to make 4 or 5 pipes, I'm going to make a tuning set. But the point is, what I've done with all these is I've already cut the front off. So I haven't lost as much volume. And then I've cut the back accordingly. But I haven't lost that big friendly, the section of the pipe that makes it friendly. That's constant. Now if that doesn't make sense, maybe it won't to me either when I'm done with this. Because I'm going to spend the next week or so, and after that we're going to be going up to Hampton and up to a Maine vacation. I'm going to try to get to the field with 4 or 5 pipes and do some tuning. And what I want to do is come up with combinations. I want to have Rich Oliver's prop and that pipe. I want to have Doran's and whatever. So I want to start making combinations. Options. Now these options, when I'm done with this whole program, what I think is going to happen, what I hope is, I'm going to wind up with a pipe length and a prop that marry up as a good combination. Now, as the RPM goes up, the pipe is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. I don't want to ever cut the engine header because it's going to be a problem with the carbon melting. The life of the pipe goes down. But I hope I'm going to wind up with, and what I thought really worked well, the final thing that worked at the Nats, and I thought it worked very well, was a 26-inch glow plug to the baffle and running the big RO prop. Now the only problem with this whole thing is this pipe is very big and it doesn't fit in any of the other planes I have. The 18-inch pipe fits in a Spitfire, fits in anything. So I know, for instance, if I'm going to come up, an 18-inch setup is going to be a 10,000 RPM setup. Doran's props are happy around 10,000. But I'd also like to have a 19-inch setup. I'd like to tune some props for that. But see where this is going? The rev-ups ran good at 19 inches. Where I'm going with is eventually from this point on, I want to tune combinations of things. Props, pipes, so I have combinations. I'm eventually, hopefully, going to write an article for Control Line World that'll detail all of this stuff out. And Rich Oliver's going to be writing the part of it that deals with the engines themselves. But a lot of this stuff, it's really shrouded in mystery for two reasons. First off, not a lot of people that really know it. There's people that play on the internet and think they know it, but they don't. But I have a unique experience in having had the motorcycles for all those years and actually being in a seat when that power kicked in. Hard to explain that feeling when you make a set of new exhaust pipes and that power kicks in. You have to kind of be there to believe it, to see it. But this is the next part of our test, the next part of where we want to go with the Testarossa, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're certainly hoping we're going to learn something between now and the end of the season. Whether we do it in a Spitfire or the Testarossa, we can only run the big pipes in the Testarossa. But the 18s and 19s we could run in a Spitfire and a Testarossa to confirm our findings. Now I have this stick, and of course I've used it for many years. And what I have is, I put this end into the pipe, even a pipe that's somebody else's manufacture, until I feel the baffle. And then I know if I'm at the baffle at 17, at 18, 19, 20, 21, which is the range we typically use. This would be the slowest RPM, around 8,000, 7,500. Some of the four strokes ran, that's not four strokes, I'm sorry, the 91 ran down that range. We're hoping the Rojet 91 is going to be running at a range that we don't even need a tune pipe. We just can have a muffler. I'm really getting ahead of myself because I'm dreaming about that 91 already. But what I found is down at 17, these motors got way too powerful and pipey and peaky. At 18, they got usable. At 19, they got friendly. And somewhere in the 17 to 19 range, almost everybody with a commercial prop winds up. Lower RPM, slower turning props, yeah, I've gone out to 21. And when I've totally gotten away from the tuning and let the pipe just be at 26, what I've been able to do is get a giant volume, had great scavenging, way better than average scavenging. Motor ran very cool even in Texas. Never had these hot runs. And I don't know that ultimately is going to be what I want, because managing the power, again, is way more important than just having more. Anytime you want more power, make the Venturi bigger. And Richard's got an article coming in Control Line World about the Venturi sizes and how to monitor it. Take a head gasket out. Use more nitro. There's just a bottomless pit of power if you don't want to control it. When you want to control it, then you have to deal with things like exhaust scavenging, tuning, and making combinations of things that don't overload the motor and let the motor work in the range that it's happiest in. Derek Berry found me this magazine, and it's from a long time ago. And there I am on the cover of the magazine. But all you need to do to figure this out is you just look at those exhaust pipes, and Kenny Augustine and I made those pipes. That was a pretty involved thing, getting them up out of the way and around the swinging arm. If you look at, in fact, it was on, they named the article the 150 mile an hour. Now every Tom, Dick, and Harry bike goes 150, but back in the 70s, not many bikes went that fast. Same exhaust pipes. That's me on the cover. In fact, I even have a picture of the bike when it was sitting in my backyard. Sitting down here, good memories. And I mean, my motorcycle racing time that I spent, I really feel like I learned a lot. The same way in modeling, you learn a lot about life. You learn a lot about friends. You learn a lot about how to conduct your life, how to deal with reality. Motorcycling isn't a whole lot different. The only difference in my book is you can really get hurt. Modeling, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I haven't seen Rich Oliver stick his finger in a prop, but when I look at some of these old things, it makes me glad I'm back building planes. I'm just wouldn't be happy knowing that. And the kind of money that gets into it. You go buy a modern bike and start replacing parts and tires every 2 weeks, you'll be back buying road jets in a hurry. And to think, there I was. Look at that, how long ago that was. It's almost unbelievable. Right in the SIG ad, the sweeper. What a big deal that was to be in a SIG ad years ago too. Nowadays, not that big of a deal. Anyway, we're also thinking of the possibility of maybe bringing the Spitfire up to Midleys, because I wanted to get a lot of people's input, and this is an easy plane to tune, an easy plane to do pipe testing on. It's got a nice big belly, but you can't run the big long pipes. I limited it when I built the plane. And so what I'm suggesting is, if you want to do testing, and in the very beginning, let the pipe tunnel be a few inches longer than you really think it has to be, or make some kind of a little cowling or hatch or something back there that you can deal with. And I'm really disappointed at one thing. We were going to try to get time to do the rebuild and the repaint. Well, we just haven't had the time this year. It's just been just a bottomless pit of things to do. And just to show some of the little things we made, this is one of the pipes I have to put the stinger on yet. But notice how up in the front it's got just a little bit of a curve. That's what allows us, and this is a little bit of an oversized front end that slides up over the header, so I can take the 19-inch pipe, turn it into up to about an 18-inch pipe, well, maybe even less, but because it has the trombone effect up in the front. So if I make a pipe with this bigger front end, what I try to do always is make it a little longer than necessary. The same way if you use Rich Oliver's system with the pantyhose on a Venturi, you always make the Venturi a few thousandths bigger than it has to be, and then put a couple layers of pantyhose for the fine tuning. But anyway, I wanted to go through these. Some of the early ones, and we were still using pipe pressure then, we were having cone baffles in the back. Cone baffles make more power. The problem with cone baffling, of course, is you get power spikes. The flat back, softer. We had some of these that years ago we had trouble with the resin getting water in it, but the pipes, nothing bad ever happened to the pipe, they just got ugly. And we were trying different baffle locations, and this whole thing evolved. I had made pipes that looked like a banana. This was for a customer, and I wound up testing it in my plane. I liked it so much I just made him another one. But we had I call it a salt shaker back end that you could jam screws in and just adjust the bleeder belly that way. Some of the ones we made with twin stingers, and again, you just go back and forth on these. We had one with, this was for a special project. Big long stinger on a very small angle to cut the smoke down, among other things. Oh, you also, and I wanted to mention this, if you ever have a tuned pipe and it's got a place that's just leaking one little drop of oil somewhere, because in time nothing's perfect, they wear out, especially up in the front here. JB Weld, you can sand it down, clean it with M600, sand it down and JB Weld it. Sometimes that works. But if you're at the field and you just want to get through the day, I have this special tape, and I'll send you some if you want. You see, it looks like Scotch tape, but it's not. It's heat proof up to 600 or 700 degrees. What that tape lets you do is just get through the day. Now what I did, years ago people used to write in a magazine about, oh, if you get a pinhole in a pipe, the whole tuning goes out the window, and that might have been true when they were using the pipe to make a power spike. But modern pipes aren't making a power spike. They use to manage the power. They use to scavenge, and you notice how on these pipes, that scavenging part, there isn't a straight part that stays straight like the header. It immediately starts scavenging right at that point. So I think this latest group, and they have the exhaust system that Dub Jet and Rich Oliver came up with, never had a baffle come loose. The resin system that we're using now, we've had no trouble with it at all. It post-cures up beautifully. Now, but what I tried to do on this video is pass on the information that I have learned in, and God, it's been 30 years probably, and a lot of it, I'm amazed that nobody else has written about it. And I don't know what the reason for that is, but you can surmise on your own. But you can also look out on the internet. Anything, if you look up the subject being two-stroke tuning. Two-stroke engine tuning is something that they use in watercraft, dirt bikes, ATVs. A million things they use. They use it in RC pattern. They used to use it in RC pattern too. And you can always, if you want, put an engine on a test stand, put the header on, put the pipe at 18, put the prop you're going to use on, and just leave the coupler loose and slide it up and back, and you'll find there'll be a spot where you get a power spike. If you don't, then the tune pipe is out of its tuning range. But if you're in that 17 to 19 range, you'll probably find a spot where it tunes. And you can mark that if you want, if you think that's going to help you. But the reality is you got to fly the plane, and you got to fly it under a lot of conditions. Power spikes are funny things. There'll be a day on a cold day when a power spike is your best friend. It'll come in at the right time. The weather will warm up, the power spike will totally go away. Or the opposite, you'll have no power spike, and you'll have a power spike. And of course, the worst of all worlds is to have a power spike when you don't want one. Wing over, pull out right here. You're getting ready to make your turn. You don't want to hear "air." That's the worst thing in the world. And the other thing I always use is when I start talking to somebody about engines, stunt engines, and the first words out of their mouth are more power. As soon as I hear more power, I have to skew the whole conversation into things that don't really matter, because we're not having a power contest. If we were, we'd all be using pylon engines. There'd be no friendly little 40s and 35s. There'd be combat engines. I mean, Paul Walker would have used 4 combat 15s with bladders if more power was always what you want. I think what you really and truly want to get, and maybe get from this video, is power management. How to soften it, how to control it, and when you need a little more, take the pantyhose off, shorten the pipe a very small amount, or put a different prop on. Not resort to radical things. And in the days of power spike 40s, where you'd go in, one click on the needle and the engine run 20 minutes. It'd overheat, boom. And that's where all There's some pictures that came in today from Joe Owen, his giant Nobler. This is an oversized Noble he's been working on for a while. It's old Brodak B25 silver. Now with the setup we put in the plane now, you can see some of the other pipes just hanging out there. This pipe exits. We've had this pipe in the plane before, and we're going to try at least tomorrow, if we get some flying time, try to get some more of this pipe prop testing, combo testing done. Again, we're hoping for some good weather. They reported another great day. I hope another great day. But there's an awful lot to learn. There's an awful lot of testing to be done. And I hope that ultimately I can pass most of it on, or some of it on, and that it'll somehow make your involvement in what we do a lot more fun. Now if you look at this, this is a goldfinch feeder. It has Niger seeds, and we've had it up for a while. We just started getting goldfinches. You see how much of the seeds they've eaten? And there's a male and a female. They stay together, and we've been lucky enough as we're sitting out here. Believe it or not, Karen's made us some delicious hot dogs and salad. But the main thing is we're getting to check out the birds. There he is. Notice how yellow he is? The male is really a pretty, well, they're both pretty, and they eat on this feeder upside down. See, they hang by their feet and eat upside down. The holes in the feeder are underneath the pegs. in such a way that the birds almost have to eat upside down. And it's really neat sitting out here. We're watching what's going on. Eating our, what kind of hot dogs are they, baby?
Hot links.
Hot links.
Hot links. Hillshire Farm.
Karen's kosher hot links.
They're not kosher.
Kosher,
Not kosher.
and kosher goldfinches. Boy, they are a pretty pair. When they're both, oh, they're by the feeder together now. Yellow goldfinches. Look at the yellow on this guy.
They're beautiful.
They really are. And like most birds from the finch family, including cardinals, they mate for life, they pair for life. And we're going to try to get some more prop pipe combo testing tomorrow. But right now it's a beautiful evening here in beautiful Rutherford. Sitting out here eating our beautiful hot dogs. And watching our beautiful goldfinches do their thing. I love how they just hang upside down. The upside down bird feeder. See the way they have the perches, that's so cool. They have to hang upside down to get the food, to get the seeds. Kind of an upside down bird feeder. Anyway, again, we're just waiting. Uh-oh, the woodpecker's back. We got a red-headed woodpecker over here. If he comes out to play, check his head out. He's a redhead. Oh, I got to put some stuff out for him tonight. But it is really pleasant having a nice dinner out here, having hot dogs, checking out the birds. Now here's what happens when you give a guy a can of spray paint. Look at this. They outlined the area we worked on yesterday. Holy moly. Starting to look like a real professional flying field. Anyway, doesn't look like the air is real good today. But we will try to get a couple of runs and then get back. We still have some more stuff to work on. But I always like starting the day off with a trip to the field to see what Richard has come up with. Oh, listen, they're arguing like two old ladies over here already. Hey, Rich, JFK just called me up and he says, come down and pave the runways over at Teterboro. Look at this guy. I'm telling you, this is professional looking. Too bad we're not flying carrier.
That's right.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now what Rich has had really good luck with, and I'm real happy when we looked over his Nats flights. This is a 77 Rojet. It's a Brian Ether 13.4. And I've repitched it. It's actually my prop. I've repitched it about 6 times. And he's got a pipe with no baffle. This is a no baffle pipe. I don't know if you can see the exhaust coming out. Now this combination for Rich, this is one of the combinations that well, we all like it. This is really a good combination. 18-inch pipe length, but no baffle at all. This goes to the end of the pipe.
There'd be no reason in the world to change the time.
Good.
Now this is the pipe we made you with no baffle.
No
There's no baffle at all.
No baffles.
Okay.
This guy that I know, it makes a good pipe.
Yeah, I know him too. I look in the mirror, I see him all the time. Clean it up, baby. And you haven't been inventing any new tank shim systems, have you?
No. The tank shims.
You're using the standard, the way,
The standard method.
the ones that don't go through the tank and out the other side.
Exactly.
So it looks like we finally got a flyable day. And we got this real nice takeoff pad now. Now what I wanted to do, I brought out some of the props that I wanted to try. And I want to, I got the 3 blades, the 2 blades. What I was going to try to do is with the little bit shorter pipe, come up with a combination that'll work on the 3 blade. But the first thing I want to do is get a couple flights on what is my now square one flight. Square one, always want to get a flight right where it was at square one. And then try to go back and forth and see if we're going to make any improvements today. Looks like the air might be cooperating. That's certainly nice if it does. But by going back and forth, see what was happening was with the 26-inch pipe, it was at a range where the 3-blade, Doran's 3-blade wants to run a little over 10,000, 9,800, 97. And so it wasn't a good combination. Now with the shorter pipe in here and with the 3-blade, it may be a better combination. So what we're looking for is to get a pipe and a prop put in a bag as a combination where the two things are working hand in hand together. But always, as I always start off with a square one flight. Now this had proved to be even a better morning than I thought it would be, because nobody showed up, and when nobody shows up, what you really get to do is get the maximum use of the field. So for doing something like this, making combinations or prop testing or whatever, this is really going to be to my advantage. And if I can, and I'm not sure I can, get the camera in position, because where the camera wants to be is typically in a spot, the sun is in the wrong spot, or this is really a difficult field to shoot at. And we have these joggers going by. I'm not so sure they wouldn't just pick up the camera and walk away. Keep in mind, you're in the New York area here. There's a lot of seedy people walking around. And most of them don't know I'm in the mafia, so maybe that's good, I don't know. Now we already got a flight already this morning just to get where we want to be with the square one. I've got the needle pretty much where I want it, so now it's going to be a question of seeing if I can get any flights on video. And I've been working on this thing trying to get hot restarts, get them a little more reliable. But when this motor is red hot, it's it's an adventure. It can be not your best friend. So let's see if my hot start procedure is getting any better. I know everybody's going to laugh. But we will set up to try to get some flights if we can. because the wind is moving around, I'm going to try to move the camera. That's really just almost impossible to find the right angle here. Not sure if this angle is going to be any better than the first, but we'll give this a try. Now it's pretty apparent after, well, we got 3 flights now, pretty apparent that this combination is way too powerful, too pipey. What we call this, when Richard Oliver and I are discussing it, we say it's too frisky. Motor's getting too racy, wanting to come onto a 2-cycle and come on way too powerful. Now in the old days, what we would try to do, especially if you're using a Tiger 60, is just add a head gasket now. That would be the easiest way to calm it down. But we're trying to do this all with props and pipes and come up with combinations. So that's the next step on this. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to try, this is my old reliable square one prop. It's an old 14.5 rev up. Anytime I want to see where I am in the power curve, I put that on, set the motor at 9200 and get kind of a square one feel. Now this is the prop I used at the Nats, and so this is now my square one prop. This one is a little bit softer, a little less power, but I'm kind of wanting to try right now. The thing I wanted to try, because I've got the engine set up that it's making a little bit too much power, is go to Doran's 3 blades. Now Doran's 3 blades, if you're running them fast, they seem to really work nice. That's really a combination, but they don't like to run slow. And in my case, I really like to get it set up. In the beginning when I was running them, run them at 9,800, 10,000. And if the motor was set with the shorter pipe that I had at the time, they would really be nice. But when we went to Texas, we kind of decided these props were going to be the props of choice for the Nats, and they got us into the top 5. But now we're looking to just come up with one more combination, maybe a combination that we can use. We certainly have this one in the bank, and I think what we want to do, and I hope is going to work for me, is get something set up with the 3 blades before this test session ends. And I think the situation today is because it's really hot. In fact, let's look at the air density meter. Whoa, we're really down nowhere here, and it's dropping fast as the day goes on. We're coming up on the mid-80s. So this will be a real good valid test. We have Muncie conditions right now, pretty much Muncie conditions. Now I even wasted a few flights today running what amounts to be a full 15-inch prop. This is a Bali 15.4. This is certainly not going to be the first choice with the pipe set up this short. With this setup, it immediately jumped out at me. We got to make the pipe longer, so we'll go back and do this part of the test with the longer pipes. This is why I want to have a set of these pipes, because as you move the pipe in and out, the pipe and the prop have to work in unison. And I want to get on and test some of those 3 blades while we have the pipe short like this. The pipe is at 18 right now. Now one of the combinations we really like, and I realized this was one that worked on a Spitfire too. This prop has actually been on a Spitfire. Doran's 3 blade, 18-inch pipe length. That was really a friendly combination. Now, the problem is, the reason we really kind of favored Richard's prop over Doran's prop is in the really, really rough air. This is not quite as strong in, Texas, some of the real buffety, and if you go back to the Nats, especially the footage from the Nats video that Bruce Hunt shot, you'll see Richard's prop really made it through some rough air. And so what I'm going to do is, I don't know how long this day is going to last in terms of air, but I want to spend the rest of this day, and I'll try to get some video, running a 3 blade with this combination, the 18-inch pipe. This is a totally stock, out of the mold, not pitch change, just balanced and cleaned up. One of Doran's props, of which now we have, 4 or 5 of them over there. And they all seem very consistent. Again, in good air, these props are just deadly. And they allow, because they're about a ½ ounce lighter than Richard's prop, they allow the plane to rotate quicker. A lot of other nice little trim issues. If you knew you never were going to Texas, or never going to have to fly in some really high, gusty wind, this would be the proper choice. Now, as always, in the world of stunt, the problem is always the same. Is everything that you get in life, when you find a combination that's really, really frisky, it'll usually go through the wind, but then it's too frisky in good air. When you find a setup that's good in dead air and calm air and nice conditions, it usually doesn't like to go through the overhead 8 in frisky conditions when it's really getting bumpy. But this is why I thought it paid to go down to Texas in preparation for the Nats is because it gets you, and Brodax, we get a totally different set of circumstances. Problem is that any of these meets is you need to know ahead of time which one of these situations you're going to run into. And that air density meter has certainly helped in that regard. Now I know right now with the temperatures in the 90s, we're in the low 90s, and that air density down around 80, right now we're down around 86. That's about what it was in Muncie. That's what I call, or for lack of a better word, Muncie conditions. And at least you know right now the things you want to look for are the things that worked well under those conditions. Now we're going to try a couple of, what I'm going to try is, if this isn't frisky enough, I'm going to try shortening the pipe 1/8 of an inch, lengthening it 1/8 of an inch, trying to find a range. Because at the end of this day, I want to marry up a pipe and a prop together. That's the combination I want to look for. And it looks like the air is holding up amazingly enough. It almost never holds up like this. Usually by now we'd be gone. We'll be back making more pipes, but that's a good sign. Cut your finger, it's a good sign. Woo-hoo-hoo. Now after a bunch of flights in this air, even with the pipe made a little shorter or longer, the 3-blade just doesn't have the drive up top until I run the motor way over 10 grand. This prop needs to run way over 10 grand, 10.1, 10.2. As I snuck up on the RPM and the pipe being 18 inches, this was a lot less friendly than the big 2-blade. So what we're going to do is go back to the big 2-blade and then put the 19-inch pipe on the plane. And I think that's going to be the setup. The 2-blade and a 19-inch pipe. This with an 18 or a 17 3/4 would probably be fine, maybe with a little bigger venturi, but again, we always get the same result. The 3-blade softens the power output, the 2-blade makes it frisky. Kind of confirms all the things we were suspecting. The short pipe makes the engine very powerful, the long one very smooth and user-friendly.